Today's podcast is all about the effect of light on our health, sleep, and mood. Hi, I'm Tony. I'm an author, presenter at Sky Sports, and years ago I went to the jungle and got ill. Very ill. So this is my podcast adventure to find more energy. It's packed with biohacking, science, health tech, supplements, and some of the most well-known experts on the planet.
This is something I spent 4 months of my life doing with electrodes glued to my head so that you can do a lifetime worth of meditation.
Decide what you don't give a f*** about, which is something you don't care about.
Some of it gets quite out there.
I had some stem cells sent up to my house that I had stored, and then I injected myself with mannitol.
And we even hack hangovers.
Alcohol is poisonous. So is water and oxygen in the wrong dosage.
So that's my podcast, Zestology. Live life with energy, vitality, and motivation. Hello again, Tony Wrighton here, and welcome back to Zestology. Today's podcast was recorded some time ago, actually, with Roudy Nassif, the founder and owner of VivaRays, which is a brilliant company specializing in light solutions. And today we look all at light and how it affects our health and our sleep and our mood. And the VivaRays glasses are just so brilliant in terms of optimizing your circadian rhythm. I've been using them for a long time. And, well, I recorded this podcast quite a while ago, and I've had it in the locker up until now. So today we talk about optimizing our circadian rhythm and why it's so important, and also how VivaRays can help with that. So, one of the things that I've really noticed recently is that I don't want to spend too long in front of a laptop every day. I don't want to spend too long in front of screens, but that's what my job is. And staring at artificial light rather than being out in natural light definitely doesn't do my eyes much good. And I don't think it does my brain much good either. On the nights that the screens go away early, I sleep a lot better. So all of these sort of themes we explore with Roudy Nassif. Now, just before we start this podcast, I have to tell you that I am in London at the moment. So I know a lot of you have been asking how the move to Portugal has gone. We've moved from London. I drove from London to Portugal a few weeks ago, as avid listeners to the podcast already know, and I've been promising you a personal update. Well, that update is coming next week, okay? But for now, I've had to come back and get our visas. So I'm here for 2 days. Next week, you'll get the full Portugal experience. But for now, here is Roudy Nassif on Zestology. Roudy, how you doing?
Doing wonderful. What about you, Tony?
I'm great, but I think you're a bit better because you're in Mexico right now. I can hear the birds tweeting and chirping in the background. And what I love about you is you run a company which is all about getting really good quality light, and you have made it your own mission in your own life to live somewhere where the light is good quality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us about where you are now and the quality of the light there.
Yeah, right now I'm in Mexico, in Oaxaca City. I'm not on the equator, but very close to the equator, which means that there's a constant light quality all year long that doesn't vary so much, in a sense that UV light is constant, and the intensity of light all year long is almost constant, which makes a difference when you start moving up north. Just the further up north you move, the less UV light you get, especially that you start experiencing the 4 seasons and whatnot, which is not something bad at all. I mean, we have evolved to experience the 4 seasons. Different people come from different backgrounds. And the one constant thing between all of us is that light not only programs our environment and the seasons, but it also programs the cycle within us. And therefore, it's very important, no matter where we live, to stay in tune and in sync with the light in our environment, so that our internal terrain stay in complete harmony with the external terrain. And this is how we start experiencing harmony with the seasons and overcome, let's say, many people suffer from depression in the winter and whatnot, but there's no such a thing. What they're really suffering from is this harmony between their biological programming telling them it's summertime because of a mismatch in the light environment that is entering their eyes and the light environment that is present in nature.
Okay, yeah. So, I'm just it is still easier to not feel that disharmony when you're in Mexico as to when you're in London in an airless, windowless studio like I am now, or Canada where you used to live?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's easier in a sense where you need to do less to harmonize yourself with the environment, because the sun is always there, and it's so easy to go outside and soak that sunlight. Whereas when you start moving up north, you're dealing with a bigger change in the light environment. The days start getting shorter as we move towards the fall and the winter, and UV index start going down, let's say. And this light information of the day shortening and UV decreasing start actually activating the biological programming in our body that prepares us for the fall and for the winter, so that we can be better prepared to respond to our environment biologically in such a way that we live in harmony. And when we are not prepared, take a wolf in nature as an example. A wolf in nature does not wait until the first snowfall up in Canada, let's say, until it starts growing its thick fur, coat for fur. And why is that? Because the wolf is in tune with the light in its environment. During the fall, when UV light start dwindling and the days start shortening, the wolf is not being exposed to artificial light after the sunset, confusing its brain and making the wolf think that it's daytime when it's actually nighttime. So it's picking the right light information through its eyes. It's red. The pineal gland of the wolf is registering that the day is shortening by the lengthening of the melatonin cycle, which is the sleep hormone. And all of this start preparing the wolf to grow its fur, preparing for the winter. But not only this, it shifts how the mitochondria of the wolf start working. It alters the metabolism of the wolf in such a way that the wolf, during the winter, its mitochondria start burning fuel and fat as heat rather than only ATP. And this is what allow actually all animals to produce a lot of heat and overcome the freezing temperature during the winter. It's not only their fur.
Yeah. So what you've got VivaRays, which I absolutely love, and is just a brilliant way to regulate the quality of the light that you're taking at various times. And I want to talk to you about that. And I also want to talk to you about the quality of light that we receive in general, because I messaged you about a month ago, didn't I? And I was like, mate, I'm going down a real rabbit hole about light. I'm so fascinated about it all. And as it turns out, you know someone who's written pretty much the best book about light, don't you?
Yeah, I know several people and many mentors who wrote wonderful books about light. And the one I recommended is one of my favorites, is by Dr. Jacob Liverman. Light is the medicine of the future, which really speak about how light is one of the most powerful forces that govern every aspect of our biology and life. And we start understanding how the eyes are not merely cameras through which we are designed to see the world. They're much deeper than this. In fact, it's our eyes that help us they're the timekeeper, so to speak. And they're an extension of the brain that regulate our endocrine system and our nervous system and our circadian system. So back in the 1970s, science first recognized that light entering our eyes was not only for the purpose of vision. In fact, vision was only a small aspect to this light entering our eyes. And we now know that this light controls and regulates the endocrine system, the nervous system, and the circadian system. Wow. So as an example, different frequencies entering our eyes tremendously impact how our nervous system responds to the environment in such a way. When we wake up first thing in the morning and go outside, blue and green light enter our eyes and activate our sympathetic nervous system. And this instantly sends a signal to the adrenal gland to secrete the hormones cortisol and adrenaline, which makes us feel alert, energized, and ready for the day. It literally kickstarts this hormonal ball that allow us to be ready and prepared for our day. However, blue and green light are never shining on our eyes in isolation. Anytime we expose ourselves to blue and green light from sunlight, it's also balanced out with the different frequencies of colors, the orange, the red, the yellow, as well as the invisible lights from UV and infrared. And this balanced blend of light entering our eyes is very essential to activate the autonomic nervous system in such a way that creates equilibrium between the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. And for people who are not familiar with what that is, the sympathetic nervous system is just like a gas pedal. It allows us to move into action. Whereas the parasympathetic nervous system is like the brake pedal. It allows us to rest, rejuvenate, and repair. And none of those two is better than the other. We need a perfect equilibrium between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. And we're now starting to understand how light actually programs our nervous system to maintain this perfect equilibrium between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic through the perfect blend of light that enters our eyes throughout the day. But not only this, through the equal darkness that we must be exposed to after the sunset to balance out the light. Because exposing ourselves to the perfect lighting, let's say in Mexico over here, and focusing on harnessing the power of that light, without equally focusing on harnessing the power of darkness after the sunset, is literally like someone who is continuously trying to inhale without ever exhaling. They're going to end up exploding, because life is a two-way motion. It's inhalation and exhalation. It's the yin and the yang. It's the light and the darkness. So even for someone like me here in Mexico, I do harness the power of sunlight by going outside, watching the sunrise, taking sun breaks throughout the day. Anytime I'm inside, I protect my eyes from unbalanced artificial lighting that comes from screens, but not only from screens, from LED bulbs that are everywhere. Because this light peaks at 455 nanometer in the blue, which is a narrow peak in the blue. It's not even all the blue. And it's very deficient from all the different frequencies of color, which start creating inflammation, and it decreases mitochondrial function in the eye. It causes eyesight problems. It causes sleep issues. It even messes up with our blood sugar levels. It messes up with our hunger levels. So there's a lot of effects that happen when light strikes our skin and our eyes. And on the other side, it's very, very, very important that even for someone like me living in Mexico, the moment the sun sets, I stop blocking artificial light, because I don't want to be confusing my brain again into thinking it's daytime. And why is that? Because nighttime is a sacred time for healing, rejuvenating, and repairing. It's actually when the eyes stop perceiving blue and green light frequencies that the melatonin, the signaling molecule in our body, stops flooding in our bloodstream and activating autophagy, apoptosis, which is equal to healing and rejuvenation and cellular cleaning. The brain, the heart, the organs, every part of our body is designed to clean itself, to repair and rejuvenate when we stop seeing light.
Yeah. So I think it's really interesting, isn't it? Because I've been doing some research for my new book recently and looking at how our brains work when we're not conscious of it, but secondly, in our sleep. For example, there is quite a large body of people who don't use alarm clocks, but tap their head on the pillow the amount of times corresponding to the time that they want to wake up in the morning. So if they want to wake up at 7 o'clock, they tap their head 7 times, and the unconscious mind starts to wake them up. And that is because our brains are working even when we're asleep, and it's all going on at quite an unconscious level, which ties into what you were talking about there, in terms of all the processes related to, for example, hormones that we don't really understand that are going on beneath the surface but are taking place. Now, it was really interesting you talking in the morning there with morning light and sort of kick-starting that process. And that's one of the things that I've really appreciated. And since, talking to you last year and reading some more stuff and looking into Jacob Lieberman's work as well, I'm definitely trying to tap into that more. And I'm feeling really good about that in the morning. Of course, it makes so much sense. The brightness of a computer screen or not going outside in the morning it's just not good enough. You've got to wake up the system. And what I didn't realize before chatting to you was the fact that looking at the sun or absorbing the morning light from behind a window isn't good enough. And absorbing the light from behind spectacles, which I don't wear glasses, but this is something that you've looked into a lot, isn't it? And that is massively important because, again, you're not getting all the UV light, are you?
Yeah, absolutely. So anytime you're actually looking at sunlight behind windows, it has been shown that you need 50 times more the amount of time to actually reset your circadian rhythm. But that's only from a circadian perspective. Now, when we start diving into an endocrine perspective, it becomes even more complex because basically UV light, first thing in the morning, we have photoreceptors in the cornea and the eye called neuropsin that absorb UV light and convert that energy so that you could use that UV to convert the amino acid tryptophan into serotonin and also into melatonin. Now, why is that important? Because serotonin is this magical neurotransmitter that allows you to feel content and satisfied with what you already have. It's the neurotransmitter that is related to your connection to your inner self and your connection to your environment and your presence and your ability to be content with what you already have. Also, we spoke about melatonin. Melatonin, the hormone of darkness, is actually produced in the eye in response to morning UVA light, which if you're standing behind a window or you're wearing your prescription lenses or your sunglasses, you're actually blocking that highly energized UVA to enter the eyes and to convert those amino acids into serotonin and melatonin. But it also converts tyrosine into dopamine. And dopamine is this miraculous molecule that allows us to have the motivation and the determination to go after what we really want in life. It's this molecule that allows us to seek things outside of us, to achieve goals, and to think outside of the box and to see the bigger picture in life. So in a way, we are starting to see how light entering our eyes actually creates reality, right?
Yeah.
Because this light is not only used for vision. In fact, UV light is an invisible spectrum of light that is actually programming our neurotransmitters and hormones that allow us to make a model of ourselves in space and time and perceive our self-image. And it actually influences the way we perceive the world. It actually influences our ability to, or our capability to achieve a goal or not. So imagine that if you take two people who have the same drive and the same desire and the same competence, and if you get someone first thing in the morning to see UVA highly energized light, and the other one is indoors, not able to see that light, the person who is actually tapping into UVA is going to increase their serotonin, their dopamine, and the melatonin in such a way that is going to enable them to become a happy person. And not only a happy person, a more competent person, a more driven person. So it's absolutely important. And
wow, that's amazing.
Yes, I'm also excited. It is.
Yeah.
It makes all the difference between someone who is living a purposeful life and someone who is feeling purposeless and depressed and anxious and unable to achieve what they truly want to achieve. We are not designed to live in such a way that is disconnected from Mother Nature. In fact, we are one with Mother Nature, and we are starting to understand more and more how the light wave of motion in Mother Nature program not only our environment, but it program our internal environment, which has been also partially described by Albert Einstein's law of relativity, E = mc squared. And I guess I talked about this in our previous podcast, explaining that light and matter are exactly the same thing. And light is continuously being transformed into matter. So to put it in another way, through the light that enter our eyes, we are actually being regenerated every single day by forming all of these neurotransmitters and hormones and biochemical reactions that allow us to have what we call health, vitality, and a great quality of life.
Yeah. This podcast is brought to you by VivaRays. Yes, we're interviewing Roudy Nassif in this podcast today, and VivaRays is the all-day protection that is provided by Clip and Go, a world's first 3-in-1 artificial light protection, reclaiming nature's dark and light cycles in one pair of glasses. Definitely worth checking out VivaRays. Go to VivaRays.com. That is VivaRays.com. Feel free to tell them I sent you as well. And yep, I've got my pair of VivaRays tucked away on my bedside table, and I tend to use them when I remember in the afternoon, certainly by early evening, and then it's a must before you go to bed. And if you forget and open the fridge door or something, it's very annoying. VivaRays.com. Now back to the show. Yeah, I was reading about these sanatoriums and health spas that were built in Europe at the end of the 19th century, the start of the 20th century, and they were all built up mountains, basically, where people would go if they had tuberculosis or they had serious illnesses or lung infections or whatever. And they, because they're up a mountain, there was 20% more UV light because it was literally closer to the sun. And these people in winter, in summer, they would get as much sun as possible, but obviously not so much that they would get burnt. In winter, they would be encouraged the moment the sun came out to go and sit in the sun. So that's not the eyes, that's the skin receptors for light. And these places knew that, it's almost forgotten knowledge, isn't it now? Because we don't think about treating tuberculosis. I mean, there's not tuberculosis, but we don't treating serious illness with light. But perhaps we should, because back in the day, that was how people did heal. They spent all day in the healing qualities of the UV light. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many different beneficial effects to UV light. We could sit here and speak for hours, but we know that UV light actually lowers blood pressure. There's one study shows how people who were exposing themselves to UV light experienced a dramatic lowering in their blood pressure, and the effect lasted for 5 to 6 days after the exposure. Right. And we know that UV light increases the efficiency of the heart. And I think I was reading a study showing how exposure to UV light increased on average the 39% the cardiac input of the heart. And this means that the heart became stronger and was pumping more blood to the cells and to the organ, improving recovery, healing, and food absorption. Also, it has been shown that when you're sitting in UV light, it decreases your resting heart rate and it makes people calmer and much less anxious. In fact, UV light has to do with weight loss as well. It stimulates the thyroid gland, and it increases fat burning and metabolism, and it actually increases sex hormones by 120%. So is that for the skin? Is that the skin or the eyes?
Basically both, because we have neuropsin, which is a photoreceptor that captures UV light. We have this photoreceptors in the skin and in the cornea and the eye, and we have also that photoreceptors in the retina. And there has been like a belief for a long time that the eyes do not absorb UV light, and it was a big revelation to discover that we actually have neuropsin in the eye. And why would Mother Nature have a photoreceptor in the eye that is specifically designed to capture UV if our eyes were not designed to actually absorb that UV? In fact, melanin in the eye has a sharp absorption and UV light. Red blood cells also show a sharp absorption and UV light as well. And at the same time, there's a lot of fear around UV light. Anytime people hear UV light, they start thinking of cancer and cataract, and the dermatologists have told them you need to avoid UV at all costs, putting sunglasses all the time. And it's odd because all of these scientific studies showing the tremendous impact of UV light on the positive impact of UV light on health, it seems like we have not caught up with all of this, and we are still operating with an old belief that is fearing UV light to death. And I think this is coming from few studies, but one of which that was conducted in the 1980s on monkeys at the College of Virginia. And basically, the eyelids of the monkey were wide open with clamps, which fully dilated their pupils, and they were not able to blink. And blinking is the natural mechanism that we all use to adjust to different brightness of light. So it's absolutely torturing and unethical. And they are actually shown an intense bright light with extremely high levels of UV light that do not represent the trace amount of UV that we actually get from sunlight. And beside the abuse and the unrealistic amount of UV that they shone into their eyes, they also shown it in isolation from infrared light. And we never get UV light without equally getting infrared from sunlight. We never get it in isolation. So of course, if you abuse animal like this, you burn their eyes and their skin with intense amount of UV that do not represent the trace amount that we get from sunlight, they're gonna die, and they're gonna develop cancer, and they're gonna burn their skin. However, there's a great analogy that Dr. John Ott uses. He says, giving too much oxygen at birth can blind the baby. However, it would be foolish to think that we need to avoid oxygen at all costs.
Yeah.
Right. And in the same way, if you make a fire and you put your head in the fire, you're gonna burn your hand. But it would also be foolish to avoid fire all of your life.
Yeah.
So in a way, it surprised me that in the 20th century, with all the unfolding science and many intelligent people, we still fall into this polarized, unbalanced conclusion about nature and about UV light.
Yeah.
And we all really need UV light.
Mm.
It depends on our skin type. It depends on our habits of how we have been relating to nature. For example, someone who has not been exposing themselves at all to UV cannot go outside in summertime, 12 noon, and decide to expose themselves suddenly to UV. They must build their solar callus. And usually the solar callus is something you build, especially in northern European countries, during the springtime, as the sun starts slowly increasing in intensity in an orderly manner. We also start to expose ourselves slowly and in an orderly manner to prepare ourselves to the solar noon summertime so that we can absorb that UV without burning.
Yeah, well, look, I absolutely love the VivaRays, and if people go to my Instagram, they'll be able to see some pictures of me modeling them very badly. And at the different time of day as well, it's just really nice to have them. And actually, it's quite annoying because I'm not at home today, and I'm going to the football tonight. And so it's going to be quite a late night, and I should have brought them with me, but I sort of tend to like to have them at home because actually, yeah, if you're going out and you're late night, even if you don't have them on when you're out, you can put them on when you get back, or you can. I mean, it's just nice to have. So, but they really are good. So, congratulations. Is it going well? Is the company going well? Is the word spreading?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as I told you, Tony, we've been going out of stock very, very fast for the past.
Well, I know because we were going to do a promotion and we had to cancel it a couple of times, which is really good because I'm pleased for you guys. But that's absolutely brilliant. So people are really getting involved with it, and I mean, it's an easy sell, isn't it? You're going to sleep better, and you're going to have more energy during the day, and you're going to feel healthier too.
Absolutely, and the great thing about it is, unlike other blue light blocking glasses, which are designed, let's say, to be worn all day, blocking blue light in the same way all day. Our technology block different amount of blue light at different times of the day to mimic the light that is in nature. For instance, during the day, we need a lot of blue light. However, this blue light must be balanced and proportionate with the other frequencies of light. And the problem with artificial lighting is, as I said, we get this narrow peak in blue, not even the whole blue, without being balanced with the yellow, orange, and whatnot. So our daytime glasses actually decreases the sharpness of this narrow peak without blocking a lot of blue so that you could stay focused, alert, and energized during the day. And it balances out that narrow peak with the yellow and the green so that you're getting more balanced light into your eyes. Whereas the evening, let's say, it blocks 100% of the blue because after the sunset, there's no such thing like blue in nature. And it's important to consistently block light at the same time every day. And that's something I wanted to share with you, Tony, because you said
the moon,
even if you go outside,
is the moon blue light?
The moon is blue light. However, the moon does not stimulate our circadian clock in the wrong way. Now, why is that? Because it's not only about blue light, it's also about brightness, right? And the moon emits 1 lux at the level of the eye. And 1 lux is equal to 1 candle light that is arriving at the level of the eye from a 1 meter distance from the eye. Okay, so basically when you're sitting in a living room at night, turning on your LED lights, it can be up to 300 to 400 lux at the level of the eye, which is 400 times brighter than the moon.
Really? I often wonder about the moon, so I'm glad I asked you that.
Yeah, and this is where problems start to arise. And this is why we say it's not only about blue light, it's about brightness. And this is exactly why, let's say, our nighttime glasses block blue, green, and decrease the brightness by 20 times. So let's say if you're sitting in a room and there's 100 lux arriving at the level of the eye, when you wear these glasses, you're going to get 20 times the amount of brightness at the level of the eye. And this is exactly why those glasses are much more efficient in helping people to sleep better and sleep longer in comparison to, let's say, other blocking glasses that are only focused on blocking blue.
And if my son wakes up in the middle of the night, I put them on. That's good. Yeah.
Because the eye at night becomes very sensitive to light. In fact, during the day, we need a lot of brightness to stimulate the circadian clock. However, at night, the longer we have been awake, the more sensitive the retina becomes, so much so that very little amount of light arriving at the level of the eye could disturb circadian rhythm. In fact, even when we talk about the moon, 1 lux will create a slight impact on our sleep. And many people say, like, when it's full moon, they cannot sleep as good as when it's light, which is a natural cycle of the moon waning and waxing. Yeah. And I don't recommend people blocking the moon. This is not the point. But the point is that at night, our eyes become very sensitive to light. And if 1 lux is doing something and affecting us, then imagine what 500 lux in your living room is doing, or when you're sitting in front of your screen and all of this light is shining bright on your face.
Roudy, we got about a minute left. What is one book you'd recommend? Is it Jacob Lieberman? And one tip for living with more energy?
Yeah, so I recommend Light Medicine of the Future.
Oh, yeah.
And
Brilliant.
One tip for living with a lot of energy is stay balanced. Keep your thoughts balanced. Keep your action balanced. Keep your desire balanced. And the more you live in balance, the more you're going to maintain optimal energy.
Yeah. Oh, that's absolutely brilliant.
And that's why I ask people to balance out their lines, because when we think balance, we're thinking balance, we're acting balance, and we're also, creating a balanced environment around us. Yeah. Which we could learn a lot from nature to create that balance.
Yeah. I think we're going to have a discount code for VivaRays, which I will mention at the end of the podcast and I'll put on the show notes. But where can people find out more about you and everything you guys are doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can visit us on www.vivarays.com, VivaRays, and where you could also download our free guide, Light, the Key to Mastering Your Sleep and Energy. It's a phenomenal guide.
Oh, wow. I haven't downloaded that. I'm going to go and get that.
Yeah, it's actually loaded with great tips, and it's very easy to digest and consume. And it will help you to know exactly what you need to do in order to elevate your light environment and instantly start experiencing better sleep, more energy and focus, and greater productivity. And also, we share a lot of our educational material on our Instagram, VivaRays, and with our community who sign up for our newsletter every week. We share a lot of information about light, quantum biology, circadian biology, and how to use this information in order to create a healthier and more vital life.
Oh, brilliant. I'm going to sign up for that as well. And listen, I've got about 2 minutes 20 on this Zoom left, but I do want to say I think it's really great what you are doing, and I heartily agree with the concept of VivaRays and encourage people to get involved, because it makes so much sense to optimize the light that you're getting at different times of day. So keep up the good work, and it's great to chat to you as well.
Absolutely. By the way, I wanted to mention that with our latest technology, the prescription lenses,
Oh, yeah.
it's going to allow people to absorb more UV light because all prescription lenses they block 100% of the UV inherently, whereas the one we designed allow 50 to 60% more UV light to pass through the lenses. And the beauty about it that it integrates with our circadian system, so much so that someone who wears prescription could wear their base frame prescription outside and harness more healthy UV light when outside. And when they go inside, they could simply clip on their daytime, evening, and nighttime glasses onto the same base frame. So they don't need to have so many different frames for so many different uses.
Amazing, amazing. I do think that's really, really important as well. Roudy, you are doing good work. Great to chat to you, and we'll speak again soon.
Thank you so much, Tony. Pleasure.
That is it for this week's podcast. It is brought to you by VivaRays. And if you go to VivaRays.com, you can find their full selection, as well as the whole story, how they got started, how they learned about the effects of light on health and mood and everything else, and the action that they took in terms of how they started out making the glasses and how they experimented until they sort of got it right. It's a brilliant story, and I love Roudy and everyone at VivaRays, and just think what they do in terms of blue blocking glasses is excellent. If you haven't got a pair of blue blocking glasses yet, it's one of the sort of most simple hacks to optimize your circadian rhythm, and you can go to VivaRays.com to check it out. I mean, what they call their glasses and what they call light is a powerful medicine. If you optimize that medicine in the right way, you can feel so much better. And I know I've been in London for 2 days, and when I stay out late, as I did last night, I feel all to cock the next day. It doesn't feel right. So do check out VivaRays.com. Check out the glasses. Check out optimizing your circadian rhythm. And thanks for listening to this podcast. That is it. Next week, I will be recording a personal update on my reflections of relocation and how that's affected my energy. And by the way, the light in Portugal is sensational. So we're very lucky with that. All right. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.